Hello Pisces, welcome to Soul Good. I'm Amber Marie and this is your 2023 Tarotscope. If you're curious about the decks that I'm using today, you can find a list of them in the description box below. You can also find links to my social media accounts as well as links to information on personal readings and the Soul Good membership channel on Telegram. There will also be a timestamp in the description box should you like to bypass any shuffling. Choice is totally yours. We are going to be going through a lot of information for you this year, Pisces, so please do remember that this is a collective reading, not a personal reading. Only take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Let's jump right in and see what you've got going on for you this year. Please, Father, Mother, Life, Universe, Spirits, Guides, Angels, our cosmic team, our ancestors, our higher selves, what is Pisces' theme for 2023, please? What is Pisces' theme for, thank you. What is a shift or an epiphany that will take place for Pisces in 2023, please? Tell us about a shift or an epiphany that will take place for Pisces. Thank you. Tell us about Pisces' biggest asset for this year. Thank you. Tell us, please, about what Pisces will have an opportunity to learn in 2023. What will Pisces have an opportunity to thank you? Tell us, please, what does Pisces' soul want them to know for 2023? Thank you. What does God want Pisces to know, please? Thank you. Sorry if that was loud. I have my Bubba cup over here. Okay, and a blessing that you'll have the opportunity to receive. Lord, my goodness. Hold on, Pisces. This went way on the floor. Okay. There we have it. Let's get some clarity. Tell us more, please, about Pisces' theme for 2023. Tell us more, please, about Pisces. Okay, thank you. Tell us more, please, about a shift or an epiphany taking place for Pisces. Tell us more about a shift or an epiphany taking place for Pisces. I just have to say something. I feel like for some of you, and I really don't feel like this is going to apply to everyone, but I keep like feeling like I need to shift my body. And I feel like for some of you, there's this element of like, how do I wear this? It's like, I feel like you may not be comfortable with where you're sitting, right? Maybe where you have been trying to establish roots, or where you have been trying to kind of sit down, set your feet, isn't exactly where you're supposed to be, or it isn't something that sits well with you, right? I don't know what this is about. Again, it may be for someone very specific, but there's something here, like I keep feeling like I need to adjust how I'm sitting. And for some reason, it's this energy that's coming through of, I don't know if this is where I want to be sitting, right? I don't know if this is actually where I'm comfortable. It's almost like sitting down and then realizing that maybe you picked the wrong chair type of thing, okay? Again, take it if it resonates, leave it if it doesn't. Tell us more, please, about a shift or an epiphany that will take place for Pisces. And thank you. How would you, yes, okay. Pisces' biggest asset. Yeah. Okay, I was going to put them back and it's like, don't you dare. Tell us more about what Pisces will have an opportunity to learn in 2023. Tell us more about what Pisces will have. Thank you. Tell us more about what Pisces soul would like them to know for 2023, please. Okay. How? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Tell us more, please, about what God would like Pisces to know. I'm all of a sudden, thank you. I'm all of a sudden getting this, it feels like the onset of a headache on my the left side of my head. I feel like for some of you, there's this awakening that could be taking place for you this year, Pisces. And it may be something that is, I don't want to say it's painful, but uncomfortable, right? Because I'm not in pain. It's just kind of uncomfortable. And that left side is that more masculine side, right? So there could be some masculine aspects that are kind of awakening or coming online, right? Or something being upgraded, or things are being stirred in your reality to trigger more balancing, perhaps, in that masculine energy, right? I feel like, but I just feel like there's some sort of awakening happening with that more masculine side. And these would be things like certainty, assertiveness, confidence. These, I mean, also things like being very decisive, having direction, being supportive, being able to create boundaries, being protective, right? These sorts of things. You could feel free to Google or, look up online those more masculine characteristics, right? Because I feel like there's something stirring in regards to that energy for you this year, right? And you may go online and look through those characteristics and see certain things that jump out to you, right? Or perhaps something I've said has jumped out already. Let's see, a blessing you'll have the opportunity to receive. Tell us more about that, please, for Pisces in 2023. Okay, thank you. Let's jump in, Pisces, and see what is going on for you. So for your theme, you do have a mending. Interesting, Pisces. So yeah, I feel like, 2023 for you is going to be focused more so on that healing. I do feel like this is kind of a double-edged sword, if you will, Pisces, because I feel like you're likely to be healing things within yourself, right? I feel like you're going to be healing things internally, things that you've dealt with, right? Things that maybe have hindered or limited, or perhaps you've told yourself stories around maybe your confidence, right? Maybe around your intelligence or your logic or your ability to be decisive and make decisions that are good for you. You know what I'm saying? Like having clarity, those sorts of things, right? But I feel like there's tremendous healing taking place, and I do feel like some of these things could be coming from your childhood or could be based in your childhood, right? I feel like these are things that may have kept you kind of on a short leash, excuse me. Right? I'm seeing this as, how do I word this? I feel like whatever this wounding stems from, or wherever this trauma comes from, this programming, these beliefs, right? These stories, wherever they stem from, I feel like for some of you, you have gotten glimpses. That's the word that I'm being shown. Glimpses into what life might be like living without that lens of the pain or the trauma or the wounding, right? It's almost like you may have like had moments where you've forgotten, right? Where it's almost like certain situations or certain individuals may have put you in positions where you've felt like almost as if those things no longer existed, or, again, you just kind of forgot about them, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes this this thing, right? Here comes this dark cloud, if you will, right? That just kind of reels you back in. Okay. So, that's so interesting, because I feel like that whatever this is, again, it's kept you on a short leash, essentially, right? I feel like it's prevented you from experiencing certain things, or, having certain relationships, or taking certain opportunities, because of that fear that exists based on the core wound, right? So I do feel like in 2023, Pisces, you're going to be healing a lot of things internally, okay? And in addition to that, I feel like there are many of you who will also be healing external situations, right? With other people you may have felt like maybe there was miscommunication, maybe, there were situations, words, experiences exchanged that weren't coming from a place of truth, but a place of fear. And there's mending going on with those. I feel like there is a lot here around forgiveness, especially for yourself in regards to other people. Okay, because for some of you, I feel like you've made decisions without actually, it's weird because it's not so much that you hadn't thought about it, or that it wasn't something that, it's so wild to me, Pisces, because it feels like you may have thought about it, but there wasn't like I don't even know how to explain it. Like a decision was not reached based on like the thought processes, the, what's true for me, not coming from my ego, but from my heart, from my soul space, from love, like what is true for me, right? I feel like there were decisions made without that being the defining factor, right? I hope that makes sense. Because it feels like there's like this, there could have been situations where maybe there was some impulsive behavior, right? And had this come from like your intuition, it may not have been something that was so, what is the word? I don't want to say catastrophic, though that could apply for some people because the word came in, right? Nothing comes from nothing. So I feel like for some, like that could have had catastrophic results, right? But it definitely, if you don't resonate with that word, I feel like it's just something that had unexpected results. Like I just feel like it didn't, like things just didn't go the way that you had hoped or wanted, or, I just feel like it doesn't even come close to what you would have hoped for, right? Um, so again, I feel like there's a lot of healing in a lot of different facets, both within yourself and outside of yourself, Pisces. Let's see what else we have here from the tarot. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot to mention to you that this is the number 52 on the mending card here. And I'll be sharing these numbers with you from these cards in this case that they may resonate with you in some way, shape, or form, right? I will also be pointing out anything that jumps out to me, right? So that way it may have something to do with you or your situation, right? May resonate with someone specific. So anyways, the number 52 though, right? And let me just mention these numbers could be addresses, dates, birthdays, lucky numbers, ages, addresses, phone numbers. I mean, they could, just be numbers you see repeating. Any way they could show up for you, okay? But the interesting thing about 52 is that it reduces to 7, which 7 is actually the universal year that we're in currently. And 7 is a year about, 7 is a number that is about introspection. It's about reflection. It's about looking at self, analyzing self. It's also a year of like I mean, for lack of better terms, like magic or mysticism, spirituality, intuition, those sorts of things. So, I feel like there's this like awakening that I feel is taking place within you, and I feel like it has to do with that left brain or left side or masculine energy, right? And I feel like there's healing to be done, potentially in places where you've reacted or behaved impulsively, right? And had, created situations that maybe weren't most favorable. Okay. All right. So from the tarot, interesting, another 7 energy showing up for you. Here we have the 7 of Swords in reverse. And this is really an energy of coming clean, rethinking your approach, right? This is how I'm seeing this energy as well. I do feel like there's a coming clean energy here. There's a mending that wants to happen, a healing that wants to happen, right? So I feel like this whole rethinking your approach, I feel like it has to do with, I mean, honest, if I'm being like completely transparent, it feels like rethinking the way that you're approaching situations. And I feel like it has to do with it coming from a place where like your ego is not at the forefront, right? Because I often see the birds in this deck. They remind me of like like an annoying type of energy, right? Like I'm not gonna like just annoying. Every time I see them, like they look like they would be annoying as all get out, right? So I often see them as like the egoic, sometimes the ego or the critic or the mind doesn't always know what's going on. And so I'm kind of seeing this as like, you know, seeing past that egoic critic, like that, loudmouth ego there, the one that says like, this person is to blame for this and this person is to blame for that, and you're not good enough, and like all of those sorts of things, or they're never going to forgive you, they're never, that's just telling you all of this nonsense. It's like, get past that, right? And take an approach from whatever that is underneath all of that stuff, right? And don't let your ego stop you from making amends where you need to, right? It's not only beneficial. I mean, here's the thing, like, it's not for other people, Pisces, it's for you, right? It's for you. And I feel like there's something that needs that attention from you. Also have here the 9 of Pentacles in the reverse. This is an energy of like being a bit obsessive, especially with work. This is also an energy of like working without getting reward. And in the upright, this card in this deck is about spiritual and material abundance, right? So I feel like the things that you're working on healing this year, Pisces, have impacted the way you see yourself. I feel like it's impacted the abundance that you feel, especially on a spiritual level for some reason, right? I don't know that everyone will relate with this kind of, I don't want to say a lack of material abundance, because it doesn't feel like there's material missing, right? Necessarily. It doesn't, I don't think that this year you're going to feel like you're, struggling financially. That's not really what I'm picking up on. I'm picking up on this more as whatever this is, or whatever these things are that you're healing or working on healing throughout the year. It feels like these are things that have left you spiritually kind of empty, right? I feel like whatever you've put it's interesting because I feel like for some of you, you've put your focus on things in the, how do I word, like in the physical world, right? Maybe you've put your focus on healing and you've just kind of been, because here's the thing, the Seven of Swords can be this energy of deceit, right? Which is why there's that element of coming clean, okay? And I'm not, it's interesting because I'm not saying like you're being deceitful in the sense that you're trying to intentionally hurt someone or, manipulate somebody. I feel like what it is that there's this level of deceit to self, right? Where it's like maybe I'm just going to avoid what I know to be true or what I feel to be true. Maybe I'm just going to ignore what I know I need to take responsibility for, right? What I know I need to heal, what I know I need to work on, and just focus all of my energy, all of my time, all of my efforts on work, right? And I feel like while that may have been beneficial to some extent, right? Because I feel like for some of you, it could have helped to create a little bit of financial security or stability. I also feel like there's an element here of, okay, yes, I am, you know, gaining the physical rewards or the material rewards that I was seeking, but now I feel empty spiritually. Or I feel, you know what I mean? Like there's still something missing. Like I'm not getting the fulfillment that I thought I would. So I feel like that's where this healing comes in, right? So yeah, I feel like 2023 for you Pisces is going to be a year of healing. And I feel like these are things that stem from your childhood. I think these are things that you have likely kept hidden, or at the very least, like I feel like people may not know how these things that have affected you, right? You may not even know how they've affected you. Okay. Maybe this is something you're learning this year. Um, right. But like, I just feel like, yeah, I feel like there's a whole lot of healing going on, right? For you. It is definitely for you, Pisces. It's definitely to help you. What do we have here as a shift or an epiphany that will take place? Yeah. So, it's interesting because I was picking up on this energy of how, so I've never seen this card this way before, at least not to my recollection. You see how there's this banner being mended between these two beings. Sorry about the glare from my ring light. That's that energy of like that short leash that I picked up on, right? About how like there may be something, some kind of something limiting you, right? From moving forward or from getting too far away from the thing that you need to heal, right? Like it keeps showing up. Um, and here's what's interesting is you have here the number 37 with the never ending story. And the thing about this is this again, right? The shift or epiphany that I feel is taking place for you is I feel like you may finally be able to find closure, right? Or at the very least, Pisces, have the opportunity for closure this year, right? I feel like that's what you're mending, right? Is these stories that you've been telling yourself over and over and over again, right? Where you have to be the victim, or where you're not enough, or where you'll never amount, you'll never measure up, you'll never, you know what I'm saying? Like all of these stories that we tell ourselves, we buy them and sell them over and over and over again. For example, and this is something just very simple, right? Maybe when you were a kid, somebody told you you couldn't paint. And you're like, oh, right? I can't paint. That's you buying that story, right? And then you're like 15 and, high school art class or whatever. And you're telling yourself, like, oh, well, I already know I can't paint. Like, I'm not looking forward to that part. That is you selling that story. And then what will continue is you'll continue to sell that story and you will believe that to be true, right? And you will actually do things in your experience to prove it to yourself. For example, this could show up as like, oh, I'm going to try to paint, but you try to paint something impossible for a beginner to paint, like the freaking Mona Lisa, right? And then you're like, oh, look at, I told you I can't paint, right? So I feel like this is something that you're working on healing. I feel like, you know, there is closure here that's needed for, and I really do feel, Pisces, for many of you, these are things that occurred at your root, right? Things that occurred likely in childhood for many of you. Okay, maybe it doesn't resonate with everyone, but I feel like for many of you, these wounds that you're mending are deep-seated wounds. These are things that I feel like have been with you for a very long time, right? And maybe you haven't been conscious of them up until now, right? Or up until 2023. But I definitely feel like for many of you, these are things that you've been carrying, and they've impacted your life, your entire life, right? And I feel like if you look back, you will see where it's impacted your life, right? Where you bought and sold and believed you weren't good enough for a certain situation, where you bought and sold and believed that nothing could ever be what you dreamed it could be, right? Where you had no belief in self, no faith. No, you know what I'm saying? Like these stories that we tell ourselves. Let's see what's comes through with the tarot. Interesting. So we do have the Queen of Cups here in the reverse as well. So this is again, this is a shift or an epiphany that's taking place. And with this Queen of Cups, so the Queen of Cups is someone who in the upright is very compassionate, calm. She's a person of comfort. She's very nurturing, right? Because she's empathetic. So she's sensitive to emotion, right? She's going to be compassionate towards things, kind, right? Again, very kind of like open-hearted and nurturing or nourishing, right? She's also somebody who is going to be, you know, kind of very like sweet, very soothing, very motherly type of energy, right? And in the reverse, the thing of it is this is somebody who's very insecure. This is also somebody, excuse me, who can be very dependent because they don't know how to manage their or balance their emotions, right? This is also somebody who could be out of touch with their intuition, okay? Um, Closed off, not trusting their intuition, not following their intuition, not being open to receiving whatever messages that their intuition is sharing with them, right? Because the Queen of Cups is very spiritual, very, you know, like her, if you see in the picture here, her hands are up, open to spirit, open to that communication coming in, open to feeling things, right? Her heart space is very open. So, you know, I feel like this story that you've been telling yourself has closed you off to those things, or there's been a block in those things in some way, shape, or form. And this is where that shift or epiphany is taking place for you this year. As always, it's what if you allow it to happen. Okay, Pisces, that's the biggest thing, is you have to be willing to do the work, be willing to contribute to your own growth, your own expansion, your own emotions, your own experiences, right? Um, the depths of who you are, right? Because here's the thing, Pisces, like there are times that we build walls, right? Because we want to keep things in. What's unfortunate about that is when we build these walls to keep things in, those walls also keep people out. And anytime somebody gets close to those things that we want to keep in, that we're afraid of someone else seeing because we feel they won't understand or that they won't love us the same because we've grown up in conditions or situations with conditional love, right? We immediately seek to, what is the word I'm looking for? Like we seek to hide, even like to go inward even further, right? It's like, oh no, they're too close to the wall. What if they climb it? What if they come through it? Right? So there's this retreat that takes place. And I feel like this is something that you may have experienced, right? But I feel like this is something, this again, this is where I feel that shift or epiphany is taking place, because I feel like if you allow it to happen, right? If you allow these walls to come down, if you allow yourself to be open and vulnerable with yourself, right? I really feel like there's tremendous healing that could be taking place for you. What's your biggest asset for this year, Pisces? You have come to the edge, the number 36. So this is interesting, because we go from 37 to 36. Now, here's the thing. This could mean that you're like getting closer to something, right? This could also mean like you're counting down to something, or maybe that you feel you've taken some steps back, or maybe taking a step back is going to be one of your biggest assets, Pisces. But you do have, again, the number 36, come to the edge. And this card is about essentially taking risks, right? It's about trusting the universe, trusting that God is going to lead you to wherever you need to be. It doesn't matter how close to the edge you come, right? How risky it may seem. It's trusting that you're there for a reason. It's trusting that no matter what happens, like God has got your back, universe has got your back, right? This is also about the rewards that one can obtain, right? Or step into by pushing themselves past their comfort zone, right? Doing things that maybe they didn't even expect themselves to do, let alone for other people to expect them to do, right? This is so fascinating because it really does feel to me like the blessing being, how do I, like, yes, thank you. It's interesting because these types of themes have shown up throughout these readings for 2023, but they've been unique to each sign. So it's really interesting. But I feel like with this, there is this energy of the risk is worth the reward, right? Like with great risk comes great reward. And actually, I was just hearing, I don't know if you could hear it, Pisces, but I just heard what sounded like a plane. Like I do have noise canceling headphones on, so I'm not exactly sure, but it sounded kind of like a plane or maybe a helicopter or something, right? And I feel like it's interesting because it's it's essentially that energy of like it's going to allow you to take flight in a different kind of way, right? Let me see what we have from the tarot here. So the first card is, wow, look at this. So what's interesting is that 36 reduces to 9, right? 9 is about a transitionary period. It's about nearing completion, right? Because it's just before 10. It's also this number of attainment or fulfillment or fruition, right? Things showing up. And you have it here showing up with come to the edge as well as with this 9 of Cups. And the 9 of Cups is about the essentially universe granting you your manifestations, right? This is about satisfaction, fulfillment, true joy, right? Essentially like, oh yes, like that emotional stability, right? Like that true joy. Like I feel like this is your biggest asset. And I feel like you may not even know that that's where it's been hiding, if that makes sense. Right? I feel like there's been things that have been missing from your experience, Pisces, and you've been wondering, where do I find that? Where do I even start looking? Right? And it's essentially saying here, your biggest asset is taking the risks, the things that make you feel vulnerable, right? That is where you're going to find that fulfillment. That is where you're going to find that satisfaction. That is where you're going to find that true joy, right? That is where you're going to fill those cups, is by following your heart. Because what's interesting here is there's all this, like, it looks like heart confetti, right? And it's all around the edge, all around the edges, and it's even falling off the edge, right? It's like your heart may take you to the edge. It may take you over the edge, right? But it is following your heart and the things that mean something to you, that are fulfilling to you, that bring you that emotional fulfillment, that is going to help you to experience that true joy, right? The thing that sets your heart on fire, the thing that makes your heart beat faster, right? What else do we have here for you? The Five of Swords in the reverse. So fascinating, this energy, Pisces, because here's the thing. The Five of Swords in the reverse is about the desire to reconcile or forgive, this kind of like lingering resentment. And it's interesting because you have it again with this come to the edge. And we've talked about this being a year of mending for you, Pisces, right? So maybe that's where you find that fulfillment. That's where your biggest asset is, right? Is taking the risk to, like, how do I even word this? Like, step into what you know is true, like what you truly feel, what brings you that emotional stability, that satisfaction, that true joy, right? And doing whatever needs to be done for you to find forgiveness either within yourself or situations in order to bring that into fruition, right? So for example, if this has something to do with another person, like I was speaking on earlier, right? That desire to forgive is there. It's like, take the risk, come to the edge, right? Wow, you have the devil here as well. So it's interesting, right? Because this says come to the edge. We're talking about things that bring you true joy, right? Emotional satisfaction, emotional, like feeling that attainment, right? The fulfillment. The devil is the opposite, essentially, right? Don't get me wrong here, because the devil can be an energy of like enjoyment and challenging authority, right? Of being a little bit rebellious or playful and kind of enjoying the pleasures of life, as it were. But oftentimes I see this as the ego, right? Because the devil has to do with a lot of egoic type of things like materialism, addiction, right? And it is also um, correlated with Capricorn energy, right? And that Capricorn energy can be super, super greedy, miserly, cynical, ruthless, right? Which is also how the ego can behave, right? So I feel like there's something here about coming to the edge. And it's interesting because I'm getting a lot of things. One being, I feel like with this devil card, like, I feel like there could be temptation there, right? You coming to the edge, like there could be temptation to it's like distraction from you taking the risk, right? Like your ego trying to tell you a story, like, oh, but you know, you can just come over here and like things will be better over here. Or like, oh, but you don't have to worry about that right now, like just push it to the side, right? Like that's kind of how I'm seeing this. Like you can find that fulfillment somewhere else, right? Like you can find that fulfillment in, I don't know, let's say, what are all these things? Drugs, alcohol, sex, food, gaming, porn, right? Like whatever it is, you can find, it's like you can find it here, right? I feel like the ego may be trying to tempt some of you in that way. And it's up to you to essentially, want to actually feel like that actual fulfillment, right? Not just like that momentary satisfaction that those sorts of things bring. It's like, no, I want something lasting. I don't always want to feel like I'm chasing that next thing, right? So I feel like for some of you, it's that. For others of you, it's coming to the edge and overcoming your ego. And it's interesting because it's kind of like in a prideful kind of way. For some. For some. I don't feel like everyone's going to resonate with that. And I feel like for some, you may not even realize that it's the pride. Okay. But for many, I feel like that thing that is going to essentially tempt you and try to like lead you away from the edge, which this is going to be your biggest asset, is seeing this for what it is, okay? Is that that ego is going to try to tell you the same stories, right? Notice here, it's a puppet on a string, essentially, right? The ego does that, oftentimes without your knowledge at all, right? And I feel like the egos could try to, tell you, and I feel like, again, you knowing this is going to be, I feel, your biggest asset. This is fantastic. Yeah, you have here the Two of Cups, and this is beautiful because the Two of Cups represents unity, it represents partnership, it represents connection. It's a very soulmatey type of card, right? A lot of people refer to it as that type of card. This can be, people often in like romantic readings or love readings, this comes through again as like soulmatey, even sometimes like marriage type of energy or commitment type of energy, right? And it's here, shows up as your biggest asset. Your biggest asset, Pisces, right, is, I feel like, again, that true connection. What are the things that really make you feel like you're full, that bring you that fulfillment, that bring you that connection, that make you feel balanced, right? What is that? What are those things? And maybe for some of you it is a person. Maybe there are choices, because that is number 2 there, right? Choose are about, or can be about, choices. Maybe there are choices that need to be made, right? But I feel like it's coming to the edge and overcoming the things that prevent you from taking those risks by knowing what it is you truly desire, by knowing what it is, again, that's going to make you feel balanced, that's going to make you feel like, again, like your cup is being full or filled, what is going to make you feel like you are in a state of unity, and not just with other people, but with yourself, right? Where, like, being truthful to yourself, right? Also having that connection with spirit, source, universe, God, whatever you call it. I call it God, right? But I feel like taking those risks could bring you this beautiful union. And again, not just with other people, Pisces, but with yourself, because it's about being true to yourself and following that, right? So what will you have an opportunity to learn, right? And creating this spread in this position, this is something that might be challenging or difficult to face, right? That's the intention that I put here. So let's see, we do have imagine. Yeah, and here's the thing. I feel like this is what could be difficult, Pisces, right? Because again, I feel like that layering is thick. I feel, or the programming, the trauma, the wounding is thick. I feel like it's deep seated. I feel like it's something that's been essentially piled upon year after year, right, throughout your life. And for some of you, this has been quite a long time. Again, I'm getting that childhood type of vibes here. If you look, if you see there's like a person, or what looks like a small person holding on to that string on the moon there. And what's interesting is it reminds me, oh my gosh, I won't for the life of me be able to remember right now. I can guarantee it. There is a production company, Hollywood company, movie, TV company, something or other, studio, where there's like the kid fishing off of the moon. I don't know if you guys have seen this. I wish I could remember what it was. But that's what I'm being reminded of, right? So again, I feel like these things are like, come from childhood, right? And I don't think you struggle imagining things, Pisces. As a matter of fact, I feel like you're probably actually really fucking good at it. Okay. What I think the struggle is that I feel like sometimes you may feel like the things that you imagine, or the things that come in intuitively. I shouldn't say imagine, but the things that come in intuitively, or things that come in your dreams, or in visions, like in meditations, during prayer, whatever it is. I feel like there are things that come in and you're like, oh, it's just my imagination. Yes? Like that's how, I don't know who that is for. Pisces. That just did all sorts of something, little fuzzies to my whole being, which I feel like for some of you, that was like a trigger. That was like a ping. That was like a, oh, holy shit, wake up type of thing, right? And it's interesting because I just looked up and we were at 44 minutes, 44 seconds. Fours represent foundations, stability. They also represent endurance as well as manifestations. And what's interesting about this is I feel like, how do I word this? There's a couple of elements to this, right? One being that what you imagine, you manifest. I'm just going to call a spade, right? And I feel like for you, Pisces, this, again, I feel like there's some of you that struggle to accept this, and that's the challenge, right? That's what you have the opportunity to learn. Like, oh, wow, I have more power than I realized, right? For some. For others of you, I feel like there are things, again, that come into your experience, drop into your awareness, where you're like, oh, that's just my imagination. Where in reality, God's like, hey, Pisces, this is what you need to know, right? And you just chalk it up to imagination, right? And I feel like, again, that could come from programming or wounding or things from your childhood, where maybe you were told that frequently. Like, your imagination's too big, right? That stuff doesn't exist. You play too much. Stuff like that. Yeah. It's so fascinating, Pisces, because you have the Ace of Wands here as well with this Imagine, right? And here's the thing about these two cards coming out together. The Ace of Wands is about creativity, right? It's also about like new ideas, inspiration, things coming in, right? Also about things that you're passionate about, right? It's that fire, the things that make you feel alive. And I'm getting some fear energy coming up for you, Pisces, as well with this particular space. So here's what I'm picking up on. I feel like, again, some of you have this challenge, right, of recognizing that not everything can be chalked up to your imagination, right? Some of these things that you experience, that you visualize, or that come to you in vision, in dream, however it shows up, the things that come into your awareness in whatever way. Maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's something you see, maybe it's something that just pings for you, that just drops in out of nowhere, right? Whatever, however it is. That is when you are inspired, which, what does inspired mean? It means you are in spirit, which means spirit is communicating through you, to you, right? And I feel like this is something that could be challenging for many of you, right? Is accepting that and acknowledging it versus denying it for what it is. I also feel like there's something here about, for some of you, how do I word this? Like imagining that you can have all of the things that create that life, that life force, that fire, that passion, right? That ignite that within you, right? I feel like some of you may struggle to imagine that that is possible for you, and that could be the challenge, right? Because here's the thing, again, Pisces, you manifest your reality, you co-create your reality. And if you are constantly sitting in a space of, this is not real, I can't have this, it's just my imagination, that is what you are creating, right? You're essentially blocking your blessings, telling God that's not real, I can't have that. You're lying, right? And we all, I mean, I know that's not true, okay? I feel like there's something here, Pisces, about allowing yourself to imagine the possibilities, allowing yourself to imagine what is possible when you follow what inspires you, what ignites passion, what ignites fire within you, what makes you feel alive, what makes you feel like anything is possible, right? What makes your blood, like, what makes you feel like you can feel the blood coursing through your veins, right? This is going to be that challenge, is having that, the willpower to pursue those things, to imagine that it's possible, right? To create what you imagine by putting energy behind it, Okay? So what does your soul want you to know, Pisces? Ooh, you can have it all. That is, I don't even know where the hell that just came from, but that's literally, it just, I don't know. It was just there. It was like, it just fell out of my mouth. Okay. So maybe that's important for somebody. Maybe that's like somebody, I don't know, a line in somebody's favorite song. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a message you got from spirit and like that's your confirmation. I don't know what it is. If it's important to you, put it in the comments because I need to know where that came from. Why? So you do have here the number 51 showing up for you from your soul, which is milk and honey. Your soul is saying you can have it all, right? You can have the things that nourish you, that fulfill you, that make the things that make life sweet, that make life fulfilling, that make life feel nourishing to your soul. You can have those things, right? Yeah, I really feel that there's something here, Pisces, where your soul is like, hey, this is possible for you, right? No matter what anybody's told you, no matter what anyone's tried to make you believe, or whatever story you've been telling yourself for whatever reason, for however long, you can have the things that make you feel, that make your soul and your experience feel nourished, feel golden, feel, I mean, fulfilling, right? Sweet. And see what comes from the tarot. So there's quite a few here. We have the Four of Swords showing up. So it's interesting because the Four of Swords, so you have a lot of swords energy here. Okay. And I feel like that's an indication for me as a reader, Pisces, to say to you, like, your mind is probably going to be one of the challenges that you have to overcome, right? I mean, and it's kind of goes without saying, right? Because we all experience that like on a day to day. But I feel like this is like overcoming what your mind, what your ego is telling you to be true, and going with what you feel and know to be true within your heart, your soul, right? And I want to say, the way that you know that something is true for you, it lights you up, it ignites you, it makes you feel like the blood is rushing through you, it makes you feel excited about life. How else do you know? You don't hesitate, right? Like, how do I word this? When I know like something is like a yes for me and my soul is like super excited about it, right? There's this like this rush, right? There's this rush of feeling within me. Like, it feels like, I mean, I guess one of the best way to explain it is like a kid at Disney World or Christmas, or like with a black card at the mall. You know what I'm saying? Like, um that feeling, right? Those are the things. That's how you know. Your ego will come in later and say, you can't have that. Your ego hesitates. Oh, but what if this? What if that? No. And all of the things that come from your soul, from your heart, are unconditional love. So if it's not coming from that space, it's probably not coming from your soul, from your truth. Just gonna say, okay? So that could be helpful for you as you move through this year. But with this Four of Swords, this is an energy of contemplation. It's also one of like rest and restoration, right? So it's interesting because here's the thing. I almost feel, Pisces, like there's a note here, as you move through the year from your soul to say, don't forget to pay attention to yourself. Don't forget to nourish your own soul, your own body, your own mind, your own spirit, right? Don't forget to take care of yourself, right? And I feel like there's an energy here as well of being very intentional or very deliberate about how you move, right? Because again, that Four of Swords can be about contemplation, and you've had that four energy showing up a bit, and I feel like it comes from this like foundational shifting, right? This foundational type of energy. Yeah, I thought you had the, oh, yeah, you had a 44 show up. That's right. I was like, where did I see that at? Yeah, right. And so I feel like this is creating foundational shifts within you. And part of that foundational shift, Pisces, is like giving to yourself in the same way that you give to others, right? Paying attention to what you need in all facets, right? So like if you need rest, like do that because it's going to be fulfilling to your spirit, right? It's going to bring you some sense of peace. I also feel like for some of you, as that milk and honey starts to flow in, right, those things that make life sweet, I feel like there's an energy of like basking in it, resting in it, sinking in it, right? Should you find yourself in a position where you feel like you're experiencing what you might refer to as your milk and honey, right? Um, it's like sit in it, rest in it, contemplate in it, right? Sit in that energy, allow yourself to bask in it, enjoy it. Um, take a load off there, kind of. What else do you have here? The Queen of Wands. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because the Queen of Wands is a very passionate, very lively, very courageous, very bold, very feisty, independent type of energy, right? So she's going to go get whatever it is she wants. She's not afraid to move forward. She's not afraid to pursue whatever ignites that fire within her. She's not afraid to share her light with other people, right? She is somebody, again, who's very like determined, very passionate and full of joy. So again, what are these things for you, Pisces? Because your soul is saying like, that's where you're going to find your milk and honey, Pisces. That's where you're going to find your milk and honey. You're going to find your milk and honey, Pisces, where you feel like you can rest, where you feel held, where you feel like you can think, where you feel like you can restore your spirit, where you feel like that fire is ignited within you, where you feel bold and full of joy and brave and fierce, but also independent, also appreciated for the beautiful light that you share, right? Where you feel like you can share your light, where you feel like you can be you, where you feel like being you brings joy to your experience. That is where you're going to find your milk and honey, Pisces. I don't feel like it's going to come from anything that you can buy in this physical world, right? Wow. Also have the 10 of Pentacles here in the reverse. And what's interesting about this is it's pretty much the opposite of that milk and honey, right? The 10 of Pentacles in the reverse is this energy of kind of like lack of resources, fleeting success. It can also be lack of stability. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lord. So the message I'm getting right now, Pisces, is like, this is not going to sustain you, right? That milk and honey, which back in, how am I looking at this? Like, I'm a history buff, you guys. I love history, especially ancient history, more specifically ancient history. And, milk and honey was like one of the things that you could go to for nourishment, for fulfillment, to sustain you. And if you look at how I've laid these cards out, which it's not necessarily intentional, like I just kind of, I mean, each one of these readings probably looks different with how I've laid the cards out. I've had the general kind of spread, but like how I've laid the tarot out looks different for all of them. And it's interesting because these two energies over here is like, what's going to bring you milk and honey are these things. That material world, which is what Pentacles is, the physical world, things of the physical world are not going to bring you that milk and honey, are not going to bring you that fulfillment, Pisces. It's going to be fleeting, right? And I feel like you know this. And I feel like this is what your soul is confirming for you, right? There is nothing in this physical world that's going to bring you that fulfillment in the same way as the things, whether that be a job, a person, or your own views on yourself, right? That are going to bring you that feeling of being held, of feeling like you can rest or relax, where you feel like you're restored, right? It's like, people have that saying, like, there's no place like home. Why? Because they come there and they feel like they can be comfortable. They feel like they're held. They feel like they can relax. They feel like they're restored there, right? They feel refreshed, type of thing. And, that's what this is saying, is like, very similarly, right? Um, that physical world, those things that you can buy, which don't withstand, I don't know how to word it. It's like, it's fleeting, right? It's not going to bring the same, fulfillment that you're seeking. And I feel like this is something that becomes very apparent for you in 2023, Pisces. So what does God want you to know? You have here exchanging gifts. This is the number 27. So what I feel like God wants you to know, Pisces, is that by putting in work, right? Which there is work to be done here, right? There are risks that to be taken to gain access to big rewards. There are stories that need to be, halted, that need to be rewritten, right? There is healing to be done. But I feel like what God wants you to know is that if you put the work in, you will find that work being rewarded, which is what you have not yet experienced or have not experienced recently, right? Maybe some of you got out of alignment with your path. And I don't say that because in a way that I'm trying to make you feel like you made some bad decisions, because here's the thing, wherever you are is where you're supposed to be, right? But I feel like, maybe some of you kind of lost your way a little bit, right? And I feel like there's this energy of like, as long as you're putting the work in, Pisces, God is going to reward you. God is going to show you that you're on the right path, right? And this, I feel, is that internal work, a lot of it, right? Because she's like a fairy, a ballerina fairy or something. She's inside that gift box, right? So it's like you'd have to do the work to get inside of that box to reveal this ballerina, right? To get the gift inside. So I just feel like it's again, God saying, right? If you do the work, you will reap the rewards. And I feel like the work is around healing, right? Coming clean with yourself and putting your energy and your time into things that actually mean something to you. You have the 8 of Wands here in the reverse, which is interesting because the 8 of Wands in a reverse is an energy of like slowing down or waiting, right? It can be like this energy of panic, and sometimes it's because like things have slowed down so much it's like, oh my gosh, what's happening, right? But with this 8 of Wands coming in here, I feel like there's a couple of messages. One being God saying, like, don't panic if the gifts don't show up right away. It takes time. These things take work, first of all, right? Second of all, I feel like there is this energy of how do I word this? Is like slowing down in order to in order to like see the gifts as they come in, because I feel like if you're moving through things too fast, like you may miss the gifts, right? Because I don't feel like they show up in the way that you think that they would, right? So it's like, in order to see the gifts, like slow down. In order to accept the gifts, slow down, right? Like you have to be willing to see them. But here's another thing too. I just feel like God is also saying, like, don't panic. Again, if gifts don't show up like super fast, right? There's just an element of like things being woven, things happening behind the scenes that maybe you're unaware of or aren't, can't yet see. So it's like, don't panic, right? Gifts are being brought forward. They will find their way to you, type of thing. Yeah. It just feels like these gifts could be coming in slowly, right? So just don't panic. What is a blessing or blessings, since you have a couple of cards here, that you'll have the opportunity to receive, Pisces? So you do have community here, which is beautiful. And this energy is essentially finding that place where you feel like you're held, where you feel like you're seen, very similar to the energies that we've been talking about already, right? Where, like I was saying here, where you feel like you are comfortable, where you feel like you can rest, where you feel restored, where you feel joyous and happy, right? Where you feel lively, right? I feel like this is the blessing that you'll have the opportunity to receive. But here's the thing about this position and this spread, right? When I created this, I was very intentional about the words that I chose because you have the opportunity to receive it. Like I said, if you're going too fast, if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it, or you could miss it, right? So I do feel like, right, you have an opportunity to receive the blessing of community, but be paying attention because it might pass you by, which is interesting because this community is also the number 8, right? So it's just, I feel like that's just confirmation, right? To say, like, if you're going too fast, Pisces, you could miss this blessing, but you have the opportunity to find yourself somewhere where you feel accepted, where you feel cared for, loved, held, seen, where you feel like you fit in, where you feel like you belong. Okay. You also have here, so yeah, it's interesting. You have chopped wood here. And this is the number 42. So you do have a lot of 6 energy showing up for you, Pisces. You could be seeing that number repeated, or maybe you have already seen it repeated. That could be important for you in some way. But with this chop wood, okay, essentially there's a bundle of wood here. There's a broom. There's also a couple of buckets, right? The doors open, and there appears to be like dust or leaves down by this broom here. And chop wood is essentially a card of like actually having to put work in. Like it's essentially this card of like doing the chores that need to be done, right? Like the actual chores. Like, so for many of us, maybe not everybody has to chop wood, but we would think of this as, like laundry, paying bills, cleaning house, getting rid of things, that sort of stuff. I am going to read from the book here for you, Pisces. This particular card, I just feel called to do so. We're going to read the prosperity message because it is a blessing that you'll have the opportunity to receive. So let me just find it in the book here. Okay, so this does say, right, chop wood, for the prosperity message. Now is the time to take small steps rather than larger leaps on the journey to creating your most prosperous life. Move your focus off your big dream and attend to the mundane chores. Focus on the little things that may have piled up while you've been mapping out the greater plan for the life you aspire to see manifest into reality. Chop wood, carry water, as the Zen proverb advises, or wash dishes, walk the dog. While you're doing all that, Spirit will have a chance to move mountains and set wondrous miracles in motion for you. Remain humble and aware of the present. So, again, cannot make this stuff up, Pisces. Like I was saying, be sure that you're being in the moment, that you're taking your time, right? Because you could miss those gifts if you don't, right? And it's beautiful because it's saying here, tend to the other things. And while you're doing that, that's when these blessings are going to be showing up, when these gifts are going to be showing up. But you have to be paying attention while you're doing the things so that you don't miss it, right? From the tarot, you have the 6 of Swords here, another Swords energy and another 6. And this 6 of Swords is an energy of transitioning, leaving things behind and moving on. Like I was saying, right? I feel like there's this element here of you finding the people that you're supposed to be around, Pisces, finding that community that you're supposed to be experiencing, right? I feel like that door could be opening for you, interestingly, because you do have that door here on the chop wood card, right? I feel like that door could be opening for you, right? To transition, to leave things behind, to move towards what is really true for you, what isn't really in alignment with you, right? Again, more swords energy for you, Pisces. So I feel like overcoming your mind this year is going to be a big, big task for you, right? It's not to say that you can't overcome it, because I absolutely believe that you can. I believe that you will have help in doing so, right? From spirit, from source. But I feel like it's going to be something that's going to take a lot of diligence, is the word I'm getting from you, Pisces. Yes, this is fantastic, Pisces. You have another 8 showing up here, right? So again, the stories that you've been telling yourself, Pisces, about not belonging, not fitting in, not being able to find your place, I feel like there's some not so true things there. I feel like you could be moving on from this, transitioning out of this, and freeing yourself from these stories. Because the 8 of Swords here is self-acceptance. It is a new perspective, and it is freedom. It is freeing yourself from these things. And you have this card showing up right after we have this card of moving on, transitioning, and leaving things behind. So I do feel like you are freeing yourself from any limiting beliefs or stories or situations that have kept you from being with that community, that person, those people who do see you, accept you, acknowledge you, and love you, right? Or will. I also feel like it's helping you to move on from, or how do I word this? Yeah, there's something about like holding on to the measurement of progress, right? Because for some of you, I feel like I don't know why, maybe you just said this, like I already feel like I've been putting in the work and things aren't showing up, right? Um, and I feel like it's interesting because I feel like that could have something to do with the story you've told yourself and you've been telling yourself, right? I feel like you could be freeing yourself from that. I feel like you could be seeing, again, if you're paying attention, these blessings showing up in these moments when you're busy doing some of these other things. This is fantastic, Pisces. It looks like a year of tremendous growth for you. We also have here the Hermit in the reverse. So what's interesting is you have this chopped wood card, and it's going to end up lying over here or the Hermit card is going to end up lying over there with it, right? And what's fascinating about this is, first of all, this Hermit energy in the reverse is an energy of like being alone, being isolated, rejection, loneliness, right? And here's the thing. I feel like there's a couple of things. A blessing you have the opportunity to receive in regards to this chopped wood and this Hermit energy, I feel like you're probably going to see that, how do I word this? There could be spaces where you've felt isolated or you've felt abandoned or rejected. And the truth of the matter is that it's like, for some of you, like you are busy putting in work, right? Again, there's that energy of being obsessed with work, busy focusing on your work, and may have missed that reward coming in, missed it paying off, right? Or essentially sabotaged yourself by working and thus simultaneously like isolating yourself in your work, right? Or rejecting things and focusing more on your work or the physical world, right? And I feel like this is a blessing that you could have the opportunity to receive, in the sense that you're made aware of it, right? Because the Hermit is the energy of the wise man, or the archetype of the wise man, right? So it's like you learn about yourself. It's something, or rather somebody who is introspective, who there's an energy of contemplation showing up, right? Who's done a lot of thought, taken a lot of time to examine self. And I feel like you're going to see that you essentially could pull yourself out of isolation, pull yourself out of those fears of rejection and things like this, by actually putting in the work required for certain situations, circumstances, or relationships to be prosperous, right? And even if that's work on yourself, right? Because as you work on yourself, things tend to align in some way, shape, or form, even if they're not aligning in a way that you thought they should or would, right? God knows better than we do. Super, super interesting. And I was just looking up and we were at 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 44 seconds. So 444 showing up again. I feel like these are foundational shifts that are super important for you, Pisces, that are taking place this year, right? And I feel like it definitely could change the way that you view the world, the way that you move in the world, and how your life looks from this year moving forward. Thank you so much for being here, Pisces, and sharing your time and energy with me. I truly am so very grateful for you. It's been an absolute pleasure to read for you for 2023. I pray that something here has resonated with you or been valuable for you or helpful in some way, shape, or form as you navigate 2023. If it has, please do the YouTube things by liking, sharing, or smashing that subscribe button. It really does help the channel to grow. It pushes this content out to YouTube, saying there may be something here for someone else to see that's important. So again, I really do appreciate that. I pray that your 2023 is full of nothing but expansion, confidence, understanding, healing, growth, abundance, joy, and love. Have an amazing, amazing year. Please remember that whatever you face, you have absolutely got this, and God's got you. Take care of your beautiful, beautiful soul, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye.